everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. So we're still in chapter 42. This is chapter 42d, and we will always, as always, start by saying some Tehillim. Halu et Adonai kol goim, shabechu kol haomim, ki gavar aleinu chasdo, ve'emet Adonai le'olam hallelujah. That's 117, I believe. So this one's called The Good Shepherd. Rabbi Simon says, it was a Wednesday when Israel were encamped at the sea on the shore, on the southern side, and the Egyptians were floating like buoys upon the water, and the northern wind came about and threw them opposite the camp of Israel. Okay, so after going through this yet again, a lot of questions come up, right? So this is interesting. Why is Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer speaking here about north and south, since in order to cross the Sea of Reeds, you would need to travel from west to east, right? Whether it's on the east part of the Sinai or the west part of the Sinai. It's debated. I believe it's on the east part of the Sinai because they ended up in Saudi Arabia, where we actually have Mount Sinai, the 12 pillars, and the altar at the bottom with the stone. We'll talk about that. Nevertheless, it's not north to south. It's east to west. So what's going on here? So here's an opinion they're bringing, but you'll see based on the information that we have, it's a valid opinion, as all these opinions are. It's not just, none of these opinions of our sages are born out of a vacuum. No one's like, I think it's this. Why? I don't know. Could be. No. You have to bring it. Everything comes down to the pshat. Show me in the writings where you can back up your point. And again, it's not that it spells it straight out, that it says this, therefore it's that. It's connecting the dots. So here's this opinion about north to south. We're going to get into it. And by the time we're finished, you'll be like, yo, okay, that is very possible. So like we said, these are opinions. Here's another opinion. So it's one of the opinions that Israel didn't actually cross over, get this, to the opposite side of the sea, but rather they traveled in the water and then north when it curved and then went back to the west, okay? So if you think about it, take like half a circle, they're going here's let's say the water. You're facing me right now. They left, they didn't cross over, they went around and then they went up, meaning they ended up back on the same beach where they were at, they just went a little bit more north. Okay, so but rather they traveled into the water, then to the north, then curved back to the west, ultimately landing them just north of their original position on the same side of the water. And again, this still does make sense. And in fact, the Radal who says this also said that Israel were already on the western side of the water. The western side of the water, meaning they were on the eastern side of Sinai. It can also make sense, and I've said this before, people think that the Sinai desert of today is the Sinai or the Sinai desert where Israel wandered for 40 years. This is not so. They're assuming that's why they call it that. But again, it's not it. We could see because, again, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get into it. Moses escaped Egypt, right? And in its borders, which included the Sinai Peninsula of today, he went to Midian, right? Where is Midian? Midian's borders are the southern part of Jordan and Saudi Arabia. In other words, it is not the Sinai that we know today. That is where Midian is. Moses went to Jethro, the high priest of Midian. That's where he hung out. That's where Mount Sinai was, right? That's where Mount Horeb, Sinai, as we can see in Exodus 3. And that is where he took the people after the Exodus. In addition, it is the borders of Saudi Arabia today where we can actually find what could potentially be Mount Sinai, with its charred peak and 12 stone altars with pictographs at its base, as well as a massive stone that is split down the middle from water pressure that came from within it. Okay, I mean, we could read the stuff and here it is. And there's a reason the Saudis have gated off this area. Oh yes, again, everything I'm saying, YouTube these things. Mount Sinai, Saudi Arabia, you'll see. They gated off this area. They know exactly what they're sitting on over there. Now also the opinion that they made a half circle makes sense because they were able to literally see the Egyptians laying upon the seashore as we see in Exodus 14:30. You'll never read it like this before. On that day, the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dying on the seashore. Okay? Now, obviously, we've been through this verse plenty of times before, that it actually says, Et Mitzrayim, not the Egyptians, but rather Egypt, dead, singular tense, al Sfatayam, by the seashore. We discussed that this was actually the ministering angel of Egypt, and they saw him there. But again, not from our understanding. It's not as simple as that. But we're going into this opinion right now. So furthermore, we're about to see in our text the details that what Israel saw within the dead Egyptians. Besides, even if it was the Sea of Reeds that they crossed, okay, or the Red Sea, what have you, the Gulf of Aqaba, or whatever, there's no way that they would be able to physically see across the sea. You understand what I'm saying? Think about it like this. If you're standing on both edges over there, it's about 40 kilometers across. You cannot see that far. And look at the details that they go into here. Okay? There's just no way. So when we read, and a northern wind came about and threw them opposite the camp of Israel, the word for opposite is keneged, which also could mean across or right next to. So that's why, Chava to Adam was Ezer kenegdo. She was Ezer, a helper, kenegdo, opposite him, because she's supposed to mirror him. But where did she come from? His tzela, his side. In other words, she's next to you. That is, the two are supposed to be next to one another, and yet opposite one another. Okay? Look what our text says. And Israel went to the dead Egyptians, right? And saw them, and they recognized them. Wait, so if Egypt is on the other side, so Israel, what? They crossed the sea again, and they went back there? You see, none of these things make sense. Not only did they recognize them as a whole, but they identified their faces. You cannot do this across any sea or even across any river, especially if there are piles and piles of bodies. And Israel went and saw them, and they recognized them. And the children of Israel said, these were the officials of Pharaoh, and these were the taskmasters. And they recognized each and every one, as we just read in the verse. On that day, the Lord saved Israel from the hands of Egypt. And Israel saw Mitzrayim, Egypt, dying on the seashore. Met, dead or dying on the seashore. And it's also important to note that the English is almost always mistranslated in Hebrew, as we will see a lot of this. It does not say, and Israel saw the Egyptians dying on the seashore. It literally says, and Israel saw Egypt, singular, was singular, dead upon the seashore. The reason it's in the single tense is because they saw and identified each individual from the Egyptians. I remember that guy. He kicked my butt. I remember that guy. He did this. I remember that one. I remember that one. They recognized them by face. You cannot do this over a far distance. They walked among them. Rabbi Reuven says, everyone follows the head. Translation, everyone follows the leader, that which is in front, harosh, the head, right? The actions that you do follow what you think, and your head follows your eyes. So essentially, wherever you look, that's where you're going to go. That's why it says it's so important to guard your eyes, because wherever you look, wherever you're going, see what I'm saying? Wherever my eyes go, my head follows, and then wherever my head goes, that's where my body will follow. So it all starts up here. So essentially, wherever you look, that is where you will go. Therefore, whomever you are looking to, that is who you will follow. Be very, very careful. Okay. What is the internet phenomenon that has sprung up over the last few years? Influencers, they call them, right? Some, not all, but easily most, are some of the dumbest people on the planet, doing the stupidest things. And guess what? They are indeed influencing the youngins out there, right? Case in biblical point. Rabbi Reuven says, everything follows the head when, while the shepherd transgresses the sheep go astray. As said in 1 Kings 15:30, for the sins of Jeroboam, which he had sinned, and caused Israel to sin because of his angering, which he angered the Lord, the God of Israel. Look at that. We just mentioned this guy last week, Yerovam ben Nevat, right? And again, if you are interested in how this dude and his actions were a precursor to the greatest lie in history, then go to the Calling All Sparks series, the class titled The Secret of Mashiach ben Yosef, specifically about him and how we got the other fool over there. So Yerovam ben Nevat, Bennett, whatever, is what you would call the bad shepherd. Now, let's look at the good shepherd from our text. And while the shepherd is good and walks the straight path, the sheep will follow him. And Moses, our rabbi, Moshe Rabbeinu, he was a faithful shepherd. This is key for Israel, specifically since they became a nation. Numbers 27:17. Who will go forth before them and come before them? Who will lead them out and bring them in, so that the congregation of the Lord will not be like sheep without a shepherd? This is Moses inquiring of the Lord to make sure that Israel are properly shepherded after he's gone. He wants to make sure. He didn't care. Like we saw him say so many times, if you're going to take Israel out, just remove me from your book. I don't want to be there. It's all about them. It's all about your people. So he knew he wasn't crossing over in the Jordan. So what did he say? Please, who's going to lead them? Who's going to be a good shepherd to them? And Moses began to sing praises before the Holy One, blessed be he, and all of Israel followed him, as said in Exodus 15:1. Then Moses and the children of Israel. See, they are following the good shepherd. Then Moses and the children of Israel sang this song to the Lord, and they spoke, saying, I will sing to the Lord, for very exalted is he. A horse and its rider he cast into the sea. That rhymes. Not in Hebrew, though. Anyway, not only did he show them what to sing and how to sing, how to praise, how to be grateful for that which God did unto them, for his mercy and salvation. But then what do we have? And Miriam began to sing praises, and all the women went after her, as said in Exodus 15:20. Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women came out after her with timbrels and with dances. Betupim ubemcholot. Now ask yourself, we're not getting into why it says Miriam the prophetess over here, but I'll tell you. It's because first she was a prophetess, then she was Aaron's sister, okay? Miriam was prophesying when she was like under 3 years old, okay? Then she became Aaron's sister. So she was known as a prophetess, one of the greats, right? So ask yourself, why is there a separation made here in the 5 books of Moses right after the greatest event in human history? Male, female. Why is there separation? God is the one who separated the men from the women. Not only here, but at Mount Sinai, as well as during the receiving of the Torah. And not only there, also when the temple stood, there was a separation between men and women. Like we have said time and again, any place that calls itself a place of worship that has anything to do with our Torah, if the men and the women are not separated, you know godliness does not reside there. You can't start something new. If they didn't do that in Mount Sinai, if they didn't do it by the temple, what are you doing, right? You're in the wrong place, obviously, unless that's where you're at, in which case, remain. And Miriam called out to them, sing to the Lord, for very exalted is he, a horse and its rider cast into the sea. Exactly the same words and the same song that Moses and the men sang to Israel. He did it on his side, she did it on her side. But here's the thing, boys and girls. If you have not been paying attention to what is known as the Song of the Sea, you will know that it's not just a song. Moses and Miriam didn't just teach Israel the lyrics and choreographed dance moves. I jest, yes. It was a prophecy and a download as to future events. You see, now we have this in our spiritual consciousness, and since we were by the sea, we will be those who will sing it again, as this will come into fruition. The prophecy, I mean. With your loving kindness you led the people, you redeemed, you led them with your might to your holy abode. Peoples heard, they trembled. Here's what's going to happen. This is what they sang. This is what is going to happen. Peoples heard, peoples, nations, right? Heard, they trembled. A shudder seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Yes, okay. Then the chieftains of Edom. Who's Edom? This is the modern Western world today. Okay, Philistia, Philistines, we know where they're at, right? The chieftains of Edom. Whoever's running the show and pulling these strings were startled. As for the powerful men of Moab, trembling seized them, and the inhabitants of Canaan melted. Canaan's land of Israel, right? May dread and fright fall upon them, and it will. With the arm of your greatness may they become as still as stone until your people cross over. O Lord, until this nation that you have acquired crosses over. Into where? From this world to the world to come. You shall bring them and plant them on the mount of your heritage. This is right over here. We were talking about Jerusalem. Directed towards your habitation, which you made, O Lord, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands founded. This is obviously Beit HaMikdash, the temple. I hope you understand what I'm saying here. This is going to happen. Exodus 15:1 starts with then, as in the past and in the future. Az Yashil Moshe. Moses and the children of Israel will sing. So guess what's going to happen? Moses is coming back with the generation. If it's not them, then it is us, or both. And he is going to sing again, and Israel are going to follow Moses in this specific song. And only Israel will know this song. And this is also another way that we're going to be able to tell who's Israel and who's not. You don't know the song, right? No, it's not the words over here. It is the words over here, but it's a much deeper meaning. Nevertheless, anybody who's not really Israel is not even going to be there at all. All that stuff's got to be taken away. So let's continue. Where do they get timbrels and tambourines from in the wilderness? Asks Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. Rather, it says, the righteous always know and are guaranteed that the omnipresent Hamakom performs miracles and mighty deeds. And when they left Egypt, they prepared these for themselves. I'm reading this, I'm like, huh? Okay. So think for just a moment. They didn't know that they were going to leave that night with no heads up. They did not get a heads up. They're like, okay, it's Moses told Pharaoh before that something's happening. They were sitting down. They were having their Layla Seder, right? The dough. They made the dough. The dough didn't rise. That's how we got matzah. They didn't even have time to tie their shoes or sandals. It said they just threw them on their feet. They were in a rush, as it was Pharaoh and the Egyptians who shooed them out, as we read in the Torah. Now tell me, you're a smart person. You see what's happening in the world, right? You also understand that within a moment's notice, you may have to leave your home, right? Okay, they knew that. The time of the redemption is at hand. They had an idea within this short period of time, but they had no idea that it would be like that, because it says they did not have a chance to pack anything. They didn't even have a chance to pack food. What did they take? They took gold. They loaded up all the gold from Egypt, which was essentially all their gold originally, thanks to Joseph. They loaded it on donkeys. It said that every family had like 90 donkeys filled with gold. Okay. So in any case, you understand the world today, right? Some of us have discussed this before. What's going on right now, you might just have to leave your house really within a moment's notice. Okay. So you do your due diligence, also known as hishtadlut, right? We have to try. God does everything, but we got to try, which we are commanded to do. And you prepare a to-go bag, bug out bag, whatever you want to call it. There is, of course, limited room in this bag, as you can imagine. It's whatever you can carry. Would anyone in their right mind start using that limited space for musical instruments? No, honey, leave the water. I'm going to take the bongo drums instead. Right? See what I mean? Okay. So for them to actually pack some musical instruments, of all things, they did not take food, they did not take water. That's why they were thirsty, that's why they were hungry. They took gold and bongo drums and tambourines or whatever. Okay? If they actually packed these things, This should tell you that they received this understanding to take them. Because if you do not recognize, solidify, and repeat the great miracles that took place, how would you ever learn? How would we know what comes next? Only by learning what was. This is why the Exodus is mentioned all over the Torah. This is why we sing this song of the sea every single day. Throughout the day, it's always mentioned there. This is why we celebrate all the events that took place that you might call the Lord's feasts. As our sages say, know where you came from and where you are going. Which corresponds to what Solomon said, that which was is what will be. We understand? Very interesting. So in other words, them taking these musical instruments to commemorate this great moment, this was actually written in the 5 books of Moses, and we say till this very day, it was important, it was necessary. They received this obviously as a download. So Israel said before the Holy One, blessed be he, master of all the worlds, these Egyptians who rose up and came upon us to wipe us out from your world, they and all those who would do so, who rise up against us, it is as if they are rising up against you. Ain't that the truth? Now, again, look, you want to see who's not going to be here? Look at every single nation, down to a world leader or individual on the street who's going against Israel. Okay? For whatever reason, it doesn't matter what. Okay? Going against Israel in the world today, this is the, what are we talking about? Stuff floats to the top, right? Okay, so this is what's happening right now. Everything is, the floaters are being exposed, if you will. Yeah, why not? So, you see, all the power, might, strength, honor, and glory, it goes to God. You come after his kids, we'll just wait and see what happens. This we must always remember. This is our default position because there is no other God but he. Like we say, Ein od milvado. Ein od milvado. And so when the will of judgment and the judgment of God is exacted down here, the lower worlds, as it adds to God's glory up there, particularly if we, as Israel, follow his commandments through our deeds, then this gets done. This is how God is glorified in both worlds. How is God's will exacted in our context? Exodus 15:7. And with your great pride, you tear down those who rise up against you. Them, they came to kill Israel, but one and the same. You send forth your burning wrath. It devours them like straw. This is all about God, right? God's wrath is likened to fire, and it will burn up like straw, like nothing. Anyone who rises against us, who would rise against God, one in the same, especially those who are from among us over here. The children of Israel said before the Holy One, blessed be he, there is none like you among the ministering angels, and also of those who are called Elohim, Michael and Gabriel, but rather Michael, Gavriel, as said in verse 11, who is like you among the powerful, O Lord? Mi chamocha ba'elim, Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh norat elot asefele. Who is like you, powerful in the holy places, too awesome for praises, performing wonders. We need a minute to explain this. Okay. So we're talking about how they translated who is like you among the powerful, right? So the word el comes from koach, power. Elohim is and are, single and plural, known as the powerful, also gods, right? As in Exodus 20, verse 3, you shall not have other gods, Elohim, before me. Lo yelecha Elohim acherim al panai. So Elohim is plural. Otherwise, it would say Lo yelecha Elohim acher, right? Acher, singular. Elohim is plural. Elim, what is Elim? There's a difference between Elohim and Elim. Elim, which can be understood as the gods, actually means the powerful, and more specifically, the ones who have the name El in their name or title, hence Michael, Gavriel, Raphael, Uriel, and so on. These are the 4 ministering angels, right? And there are countless angels, countless. You cannot count them, with El at the end of their name. Oh, and also, you know who has the name El in their title? Genesis 32:29. And he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, because you have commanding power with Elohim, divine powers, and with men, and you have prevailed. Vayomer lo Yaakov yameod shimcha ki im Israel, ki sarita, Israel sarita, im Elohim ve'im anashim vatuchal. He was wrestling the angel over here, the angel of Esau, of Edom. Jacob, Israel, is above all other created beings, meaning the highest ministering angels, but only and obviously under God himself. And later we see God himself, this time blessing Jacob, because this one was Satan who was doing it. Said, no, you're no longer Jacob, you're Israel. Don't worry about it. Go ahead. How many times do we say this and we look at all those fools out there? They say, yeah, I'm Israel, I'm Israel. Are you now? Be so careful. I believe I'm Israel. Then prove it. Not to me. We got ways to walk. Do that. But don't you dare call yourself Israel if you are not officially Israel. Officially. Not because you feel it. No one cares about your feelings, but because you are. And I say this as a warning to you. It's very simple. Anybody who wants to impersonate Israel doesn't do any harm on Israel unless they're coming here, right? Like we see. But from the outside, knock yourself out. You will have to pay for it at the end of the day, right? Okay. Later we see God himself, this time blessing Jacob and not Satan, the minister of Esav, who he wrestled with, from Exodus 35:10. Elohim said to him, your name is Jacob. Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. And he named him Israel. Vaika, and he named him Israel. Israel. Now it counts. Now it sticks because now it has been done properly. You see, properly. It's all about doing these things properly. So when Israel said to God, there is none like you among the ministering angels and also of those who are called Elohim, means that Israel are recognizing in a very limited capacity the ability of the angels, as we learned, as it was Michael who became the wall of fire and so on, right? And so if Israel realizes that the ministering angels are so incredibly powerful, that which they have in common is the name of God, El, in their names. And so how much infinitely more so is God than these created beings? Then why are Israel more powerful than the angels? Psalms 8. What is mortal that you should remember him, and the Son of Man that you should be mindful of him? Ma enosh ki tizkerenu uven adam ki tifkedenu. We are mortal. How many things can happen to us and then we die? Anything can. We are fragile, right? Our years are limited. We have tremendous weaknesses. And in many cases, it takes the fear of death, another one of God's angels, right? Satan, to smack us awake, that we might be mindful of our Maker. And by the way, in our earlier Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer classes, we discussed just how Satan became Satan. His name also carries an L in there. It's pronounced, I'm cutting it in between, you don't want to say it. Sema, and then the word El, right? Samech, mem, so we refer to him as Samech Mem, the first 2 letters. Samech Mem spells some, okay? So I highly recommend those early teachings because it will give you a much greater understanding regarding God's plan for us, right? That although we are mortal, even in death we get purified and will rise. In fact, that is how we purify. When God made man, all of creation had an opinion, right? And it was not necessarily positive towards man, as they all saw that man would eventually fall and bring creation down with him, which this is what happened. And so it was one of the highest angels referred to from Ezekiel 28. This is Satan. You were the anointed cherub that covers, and I gave that to you. You were on the mount of the sanctuary of God. You walked among the fiery stones. You were perfect in all your ways from the day you were created until wrongdoing was found in you. What was this wrongdoing? The angel realized that God needed a fall guy. Again, I gave a whole teaching about this. Someone or something in all of God's creation needed to be the bad guy, and he volunteered. He took the fall, and therefore wrongdoing was found in him because it was placed there by God. And because it was done by the will of God, wrongdoing is the incorrect translation. Doesn't make sense. The word is avlata, written over there in Ezekiel, from the word avel, which means injustice. Injustice was found in you. Maybe injustice was done to you. Who knows? The option for injustice needed to be created in order to balance out that which is just. There always has to be an evil playing field, and that was it in this case. But you cannot discount that it all comes from the same source, and that source is God, who is all good, as said in Isaiah 45:7, who forms light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates evil. I am the Lord who makes all of these. You can't even call evil evil. That's not what that is. How can we be good if we have nothing to overcome? In the end, even Satan will be redeemed, as it says that God will slaughter him with the sword, cutting him in half. And what are we if not our names, right? We refer to Satan as, like we said, the Samech Mem, which spells the word Sam. Sam, even today, means drugs. Samim is drugs. As in the drug of death, Sam Hamavit, tied to the tree of death. But the second half of his name is El, right? Okay. And so when God cuts him in half, that means that his job is done, and God will remove death from the world, Ubilah hamavet lanetzach, and death shall be swallowed up forever, because this part is gone. The sum, the drug of death, is being removed, and what remains will be El. Even Satan is to be redeemed, because he is nothing more than God's creation to exact his perfect will upon the world. In fact, I would go as far to say is that he is the most important aspect of creation to enable us to fulfill our potential. He gives us half-truths, which is even more confusing than all the lies, right? He told Jacob, you are no longer Jacob but Israel. This is a half-truth, as Jacob will always be Jacob in this world and must remain Jacob in order to earn the right to be called Israel. You can't just feel like you're Israel. If Jacob had not wrestled with him, how would he have possibly been able to be elevated? If we do not constantly do the same, why would we expect any kind of positive change? Right? Let's simplify. If you want to build muscle in the gym, what is more instrumental? The weight that causes resistance, or your buddy standing next to you saying, you can do it? And don't worry now. When the weight gets too heavy, you will have the angels, your buddies, right? Assisting you with the heavy lifting, but the majority falls on you, on all of us. Yet you have made him slightly less than Elohim, says Psalms 8, and you have crowned him with glory and majesty. How could God crown mortal, with a higher honor than the angels? Never forget Deuteronomy 32:4. The deeds of the mighty rock are perfect, for all his ways are just. A faithful God without injustice. He is righteous and upright. There's that word again. Ve'ein avel, tzadik ve'yashar hu. Avelah, avel, injustice. Without injustice, he is righteous and upright. If all these things are coming out saying that's bad, but God is perfectly just, there is no injustice in him, that means this, what you call bad, is only one part of the picture that you don't see. And you know it's there because God put it there, therefore it's necessary. And what purpose does it serve? You, dummy. That's what this purpose is for. You see, angels can only move horizontally, spiritually speaking, right? While mortals can only move up or down vertically. We can go up, we can go down, spiritually speaking. And if we are not ascending, then by default we are descending. You see, the angels continue to speak and say, you give him dominion over the work of your hands. You have placed everything beneath his feet. This is true. It's already been given, but it's not for free. It started with Adam, didn't work out so well. We're here to complete that tikkun. It is our heritage, our legacy, and we must acquire it. God said, take it. It's yours, but come and get it. As said in Deuteronomy 33:4, the Torah that Moses commanded us is a legacy for the congregation of Jacob. Here it is. Come and get it. Fulfill it. You need to make this choice. I hope you see how all this ties together. While the Edomites believe that Satan is a free agent and that he rebelled against God is not only straight up stupidity, but complete blasphemy, as you are saying that God has no control over his angels. Think about that for one moment. They are no better than the Egyptians who believe in many gods, rather, should I say, because the one true God made sure that they would be eternally humbled, as he will with the Edomites. And all this entire spiel that I was just going through right now is to explain to you that Israel realized this and they proclaimed it. To come to this realization, remember what they just saw. Remember the hundreds of years that they've just been through. They knew this then down to their core, to their root, because their root here is Jacob. And thanks to God sending Satan, our root above is Israel. And we, like our forefathers before us, must continue to proclaim, who is like you among the powerful, O Lord? Who is like you, powerful in the holy places, too awesome for praises, performing wonders? The angels know this and understand why God granted us what he did, as they conclude in Psalms 8 and say, O Lord, our Master, how mighty is your name in all the earth. You see, God is the ultimate shepherd of Israel, and he in turn hires only the best to take care of his flock. That, of course, is Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's our class for today. Prepare to brace for potential impact. And in the meantime, you guys stay safe. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Have a Chodesh Adar Tov, and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.